So in this talk we will look at a particular pair of cells, or two pair of cells, because they can prevent you from really changing your life. What we have seen so far is that the goal of HAP is really to help you change your life experience. But in order to change your life experience, well, you have to change something. You have to do something you haven't done before. You have to see something you haven't seen before. You have to discover new ways of looking at life. And there are certain selves that will actively prevent you from doing this, from looking at new ideas, accepting new ideas. In a sense, you could say that all of these subconscious selves, they all want to prevent you from seeing the illusion that they are based on. But that's specific illusions. There are some selves that are general in the sense that they don't want you to look at any new ideas. Now, if you were completely dominated by these selves, you wouldn't even be watching this. But still, many people find that even though they start their process of psychological healing, of raising their awareness, they can still have these lingering selves that can prevent you in certain cases from looking at new ideas. So what I have said so far about these selves is that they're created in pairs because they're based on what I call the duality consciousness. And in the duality consciousness, there are always two extremes. And so we can illustrate this in a very simple way. Here's a line, there's two endpoints. So this is one dualistic extreme, this is another dualistic extreme. And of course there's a midpoint, there are gradations in between. But usually what happens is that these selves, they tend to go towards one self goes towards one extreme and the other self goes towards the other. So they're pulling you in opposite directions. And the first pair of cells we're going to look at here is a pair that we can call the right and wrong self, where there is a self that defines that certain ideas are wrong. And that means ideas that contradict your present worldview. And then there is another self that defines that ideas that conform to or validate your present worldview, they are right. And one example of this could be fundamentalist Christians who believe that their interpretation of the Bible is right in an ultimate sense, and any idea that contradicts that is wrong, of the devil, or whatever they call it. And so obviously you can see here that if you are dominated by these two selves, you will be afraid to consider any idea that contradicts your current worldview. But wait a minute now. Why are you in the situation you're in right now? At least in your mind. Why are you in the state of mind you're in right now? Well, because of your present worldview. It's your present worldview that is shaping your current life experience. So what's the only way to change your life experience? Is to look for an awareness and understanding that's beyond your present worldview. But if you allow these two selves to make you afraid to look at ideas that go beyond your present worldview and label them as wrong, and stick to the ideas that validate your worldview and label them as right, well, how are you going to change anything? It's like Einstein said, as I mentioned before, you keep doing the same thing and expect different results, you're insane. And to illustrate this, just try go outside, find a rock, throw it up in the air, and see what happens. Oh yeah, it falls down, right? So you can, as an experiment, keep throwing it up in the air until you're convinced that, yeah, it is going to come down every time, right? And so that is precisely what is meant with Einstein saying, if you keep believing in the ideas that make up your current worldview, you will not get different results. You will get the same results over and over and over again. Now, these right and wrong selves, they have led to the creation of another pair of selves, and it's the inferiority-superiority selves. So, in other words, there is a self that projects that those who don't believe in your ideas that are right, they are inferior to you. And you, because you believe in the right ideas, you're superior to them. But it also means that if you were to question these ideas that you think are right, oh, suddenly you would fall from being superior to others to now being inferior. And the inferior self would even project that if you came to see that one of your previous ideas was wrong or not complete, that would mean you were inferior, you were wrong for having believed it in the first place. So all I'm pointing out here is that you have these selves that are trying to prevent you from considering new ideas. And of course, as I've said, the only way to change anything, the only way to change the equation of your life is to look at new ideas, because let's put it this way, you're not stupid, right? So if you could see how to change your life, you would have done it. That means the reason why you haven't changed your life is there's something you haven't seen yet. And so the key to changing your life is to see what you haven't seen. But why haven't you seen it? Because your current worldview is blocking it. These subconscious selves are blocking you from seeing it. So what does these cells, what do they lead to? Well, they actually lead to a form of thinking that I call black and white thinking, because it's based on this. There's black and white. Now, again, we have the two dualistic polarities, and there's a line in between. But in black and white thinking, there is no line in between. There's only black or white, one extreme or the other, right and wrong. So Christianity is the only true religion. All other religions are wrong. Materialism is the only accurate description of life. Everything else is just superstition. So you have this black and white. And you can actually come to recognize that in yourself. You can come to look at your viewpoints and you can see whether you have this. Now, I remember many years ago when I was in my early 20s and I started walking the path to higher awareness when I was 18 years old. And in the beginning, probably quite a few years actually, I had certain ideas, a certain worldview that I was very attached to, that I really didn't want to question. So I can see back how I went through this transition phase, you might say, where yes, I was open to new ideas and I was studying various teachings about psychology and spirituality, but I was always wanting to have them validate my basic worldview. And this was not a specific worldview, mind you. It was not like I was brought up as a Christian and I believed the Christian philosophy or as a materialist. I sort of had my own worldview that was sort of neither this nor that. It couldn't really fit in any box. And I think actually many people I met who are open to personal change, they have the same thing. We have a sort of more diffuse worldview. But I still had certain ideas that sort of were my foundation. They gave me that sense of security. And this is what these cells will do. I mean, they will give you this sense of security that if you are right, believing in the right ideas, you are superior, then you are secure. And I've also talked in previous talks about there's another pair of cells, that there's the problem creator self and a problem solver self. And so the problem creator self will create this sense that the world is the problem creator self. The problem creator self will project at you, the world is an insecure place, it's a dangerous place, and basically it will say, the world is unlivable. You can't live here, psychologically. This is what the problem creator self will project, because there's this problem, that problem, and there are all these big problems that you can't change. And then you have the problem solver self that comes in and says, well, but if you have the right worldview, if you understand how the world works, then you can control your life and then you can feel secure. So you see, the problem creator self offers you a problem that seems to have no solution, but then the problem solver self comes in and says, yeah, but I can help you either solve the problem or at least deny that the problem exists, or explain it away so that you can feel secure. So this is another dynamic that you can learn to see in yourself. And basically you can say, what's the solution here? If you find yourself a little bit reluctant to look at these ideas, what's the solution? Well, it simply is this. I've talked about before how we have The conscious you or the conscious self, that's the core of our identity. And what we can do with this conscious self is we can sort of mentally step outside our normal state of mind, and we can make a conscious decision. I am willing to look at my reaction to new ideas. Whenever a new idea comes to me, I'm willing to look at what reaction do I have? Do I have resistance? Is there some process going on in my mind that's arguing, oh, this can't be right, this must be wrong, and constantly basically trying to shoot down the idea before you even really studied it. In other words, these selves, they really want you to close your mind to new ideas. But if you open your mind and let an idea in, they want to invalidate it as quickly as possible so you can dismiss it and ignore it. And so you can learn to recognize that. And the reason why you can do this, as I also explained before, is that you may have accepted a certain idea. And you may have created a self based on this idea. For example, the fundamentalist Christians, if you believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible, you're guaranteed to be saved. If not, you're guaranteed to go to hell. So they've created a self that's very afraid of going to hell, and therefore very afraid of considering any ideas beyond the literal interpretation. And so this closes people's minds completely to new ideas. And so the way to get beyond this is to realize that even though you may have created certain selves, you haven't become the selves. In other words, the you that created the selves is the conscious you. And you create a self, it exists in your subconscious mind, it has a certain influence on your conscious thinking, but you have not become it. And you could basically say that what all of these subconscious selves are projecting at you is that you can't live without them, or you are nobody without them. Who are you without these selves? The selves, or what we can call the ego, will project at you that you can't live without it, because you're nobody without it. This is your personality. And the interesting thing about this is that there's actually something to it, in the sense that right now you have a certain amount of these subconscious selves. They cause you to react, one self causes you to react a certain way to one type of situation, another self causes you to react to another situation. So if you look at many people in the world, almost everything they do, whatever situation they're in, they're reacting through one of these subconscious selves. So they're not really consciously making a decision, consciously thinking about what should I do in this situation. They just react. And so we can say from a certain perspective, these subconscious selves do make up your present personality. Because your outer personality, well, is made up of these subconscious selves. But this is still not who you are. Because who you really are is, first of all, the conscious you, which has the ability to step outside of all the selves and look at a situation completely neutrally. The conscious you really is neutral. It doesn't have any opinions. It doesn't have any obsessive, compulsive things that, oh, I must believe this, I must do this. The conscious you is neutral. It's in a sense free. So you could say that you are exposed to a certain situation. A subconscious self kicks in, takes over your reactions, your actions, your feelings, your thinking, maybe even the way you look at yourself, taken over by the subconscious self. And you're experiencing and you're reacting to the situation through that subconscious self. That means you're not free. You're not making a free decision. How are you going to react here? But when the conscious you steps outside of the self and experiences itself as neutral awareness, you are free. Because you can say, I'm not going to react through that self. I'm going to make a conscious decision on how to deal with this situation. So you can say that the more you let go of these subconscious selves, the more free the conscious you becomes. Now, this then raises another question, that is, if the conscious you got rid of all these subconscious selves, who would you be? Would you have any personality? And you can say, no, at the level of the conscious you actually don't, but at the level of your higher self, you do, because you do have an individuality in your higher self. And as you get rid of these subconscious selves, that individuality will begin to shine through. And you can say that what has happened is that the subconscious self sort of blocked out your real individuality. But as you get rid of the subconscious self, that will begin to shine through and you will discover who you are. And this, of course, doesn't happen all at once. It happens in phases. I very much remember how when I was younger, I was very much affected, as most people are, by these subconscious selves. And I had so many reactionary patterns. And it was like I was constantly going through life evaluating everything based on these subconscious selves. Is this right and wrong? What's going to happen? Am I going to be humiliated? Am I going to make a mistake? All of these kind of things. And so gradually over the many years I've been working on myself, I got rid of more and more of these selves. And that meant I actually became much more free, because instead of reacting to a situation, I could decide, I could act. I could make a conscious decision, I'm going to act this way, or I'm going to not act. In many cases, the best way to deal with a situation is to not do anything, not react to it. But anyway, as I have gone through this process, there have been periods where I felt, gosh, who am I? I don't really have any strong opinions anymore. And that's because I didn't have the subconscious selves. But then gradually I started connecting also to my higher self and realized, well, I am actually a specific individuality. And that, of course, shines through everything I do or say. But I can assure you that what you are seeing right now is not the way I was 20 or 30 years ago. So this will happen to you as well as you walk this path. And what will happen is that you will become more free, you will log into who you are. And I just want to deal with one thing before I go on here, and that is that I've noticed over the years, both in myself and others, that when we start working on these subconscious selves, there's a specific concern that can come up. And it's that there can be a self that projects at you. What if you look into your subconscious mind and you discover something really bad? In other words, you discover you are really a bad person. You are a sociopath or psychopath or whatever. What if you discover something really bad? And the way that I dealt with this, in the beginning I tried to ignore it, of course, but it always comes back. And so the way I eventually dealt with it is I had acquired the understanding of the conscious you. So I realized, if I'm a bad person, it's not my conscious you that's a bad person. It's neutral. So if I'm a bad person, it's only because I have a subconscious self that makes me a bad person. But that subconscious self isn't real. It isn't me. I can get rid of it. I can let it die, and then I am not a bad person anymore. You see? This is the magic of this teaching about the conscious you, because the conscious you has not become the selves that you have created in reaction to Earth. And really, you could, in a sense, say that people who are a bad person or behave like one, they have created these subconscious selves, most likely as a defense mechanism against being attacked here on Earth. So what I'm saying is, the magic here is you haven't become these selves. Therefore, you may have a self that acts like a bad person, causes you to act as a bad person, but you haven't become a bad person. You are not a bad person. And you can overcome that self because the conscious you is neutral. It's pure awareness. It can overcome any self. And so the question simply is, you can say, okay, so you have a self. That's a little bit of a, rough character. You can take two approaches. You can ignore it. That means it continues to exist and it might influence you in various situations. It'll just stay there in the subconscious mind. And you never know when it's going to come out. So the other approach is you can say, okay, I'm willing to look at it, because if I see that I have such a self, I'll use the tools and teaching given by higher awareness psychology to get rid of it, and then I'm not a bad person anymore. You see what I'm saying? You get rid of the self, you are no longer a bad person. But in order to get rid of it, you have to dare to look into the subconscious. Now, just the final thought I want to give here is that what happens as you walk this path of letting go of these subconscious selves, connecting to your true individuality, is you become psychologically self-sufficient. In a sense, what all of these selves are projecting at you is that you're not self-sufficient. You need something from outside yourself. And there is, I talked about the inferiority self, and it will say, oh, you're inferior, you can't make it on your own, like for example Christians, you need an outside savior to come and save you. Or you need other people to help you, to do things for you. All these kind of selves that project you need something from outside yourself because you're inferior. But then there's the superior self, and you might think that the superior self would project that, oh, you can handle everything on your own, you are independent, you are strong. And it can project that, but still, what is the underlying mechanism there? The superior self needs validation. It's constantly needing validation from other people. So it also needs something from outside yourself. Now, the subtle thing to get here is that, in a sense, you could say, the subconscious selves, they are all incomplete. They are not self-sufficient. They need something from outside themselves. They need something from other people, but they also need energy in order to survive, and they get that energy from you. So you can say the conscious you can step outside of the cells and attain neutral awareness. Does that mean it doesn't need anything from outside itself? No, actually it doesn't, because it still needs energy from your higher self. And it also, as I said, you get rid of the subconscious selves, and the personality, the individuality, or higher self starts shining through. So it's not really the goal of life that the conscious you as an isolated self becomes self-sufficient, but that you become self-sufficient by becoming more and more connected to and one with your higher self. That is true self-sufficiency because you don't need anything from this world in order to feel complete. You literally can come to feel complete in yourself. And that gives you a whole different way to relate to the world, to other people. You're not seeking to get, you're seeking to give. Now that's maybe a discussion for a later point. So what I wanted to say here is, remember this: whenever you come across new ideas, and they can come from all kinds of sources, monitor your reaction. It's amazing over the years when I look back how many times you get ideas from unexpected sources. And it can be, well, a while back I was watching a TV show, and there was a situation in there where a person was describing how she felt, and it suddenly catapulted me back to how I felt when I was a teenager. And I suddenly saw this, and I saw there was a subconscious self projecting this at me, and I looked at it and dealt with it. So what I'm saying is that it can be all kinds of sources where suddenly a new idea comes that can help you shift your perspective. So just become aware of how you react to it, so you don't reject an idea before you even really considered it. It's like these subconscious selves, you know, they're constantly projecting at the world, and they're constantly projecting this perception filter, as I've talked about before, where they are trying to filter out ideas out here so they never really reach your conscious mind. They don't get through the prison guard out there, the censor who is censoring every information that comes to you. And you need to become aware of that, and then you will find that your life becomes a process where you're constantly receiving guidance from all kinds of sources. You're constantly receiving input that helps you. Oh, I never saw that before. Oh, why do I react this way? Now I see I'm reacting this way. Your life becomes a positive process where you never really feel alone. You never really feel you don't have answers. You never feel you don't know what to do, because when you open your mind to it, you get this inner guidance that comes from your intuition. And the inner guidance, it's constantly there. It's just that the subconscious self block it out. They simply filter it out before they reach your conscious mind. So once you learn to counteract that, it becomes a constant process of guidance. This is the way it's been for me for, I don't know, 30, 40 years since I overcame this initial resistance to looking at new ideas. So I definitely hope it can be that way for you, because it's a very rewarding way to live, where you're constantly feeling like you're growing. You're constantly moving from victory to victory. And it's really a good place to be.